Okay, guys. How are you? You are live. I like this. You are live. How you guys doing? Okay, let's check the connection. That's the first thing I always do. Why? Because we had things in the past, and I just want to make sure that we are great. And the way I do it, I usually go to LinkedIn. So, by the way, give me a holler if you hear me, if you see me clear, you hear me clear, you see me clear. It's not like jumping around and stuff like that. Please let me know if it's not bouncy, if the connection seems it seems fine. Seems fine. I see that some guys see me. I would really appreciate if you just tell me we hear you clearly, we see you clearly. It's not choppy. It's not like that. Before I start officially the show, um, would appreciate to see it. Would appreciate to have some comments about this. Hope you guys are doing well. All right. So it seems like we're fine. It seems like we're okay. It seems like we are okay. Let me just 1 second again, just make sure that everything's fine. All right. Hope you guys doing great in this beautiful Thursday. All right. So I'm going to start the show, and I hope you guys are doing great. Hi, guys. This is Ishai Breslauer, the CRE SharkEye show. I hope you guys are doing fantastic this Thursday morning. And as I always do, Thursday is always dedicated for more inspirational stuff. We less dive deep into the market. Sometimes we do, but most times, people are less able to focus on data and stuff like that on Thursday. And people want just to get some inspiration before they go home for the weekend. So that's what we're going to do today. And today we're going to have a discussion about something a little bit more general, a little bit off topic, but very interesting, something that I was thinking about lately. And I would like to share it with you, and I hope you guys would appreciate this discussion. And if you have anything to say about it, I would appreciate to see comments about this. But you probably saw the title. The title is The Generation of Entrepreneurs and the Generation of Managers. And what am I really talking about? So I'm talking about the fact, I want to share with you a conversation that I had with my wife's aunt a while ago. And something very interesting. And one of the people who really had some influence on me was my wife's uncle, who was an entrepreneur and a very unique person, and a person of giving. And he was a huge giver and a huge donor and a philanthropist and an entrepreneur and a person of faith and a leader of a family, someone who was very unique, and I learned tons from. I had the privilege of having a lot of conversations with him at the time. He passed away several years ago, and one of the things that I recall correctly is one of his children used to tell me something that he used to say: the first generation makes it, the second generation uses it, and the third generation loses it, which is pretty cool. It sounds like someone, a poet, actually said it or wrote it, but it's something very unique, and it's something very real, and something very true. And I had, at least in my time, meaning today, when I want to try to find people who are examples, are entrepreneurs, are role models, are people who are self-made, to see in terms of business, because you have other aspects of life, right? You have the aspect of family, and you have the aspect of whatever you believe in, if it's faith, if it's the universe, if it's God, if it's whatever your religion is. And you have the people that you follow in terms of every single aspect of life that is involving your life. And the aspect of life that is entrepreneurial, to me, was this person. Okay. And that is a very unique thing. Why? Because not only him, but the previous, I would call it the previous generation. What am I talking about, the previous generation? When we're talking about the previous generation, we're talking about those who went through the Depression, okay? The Depression, who are now no longer with us. Because if you had to be in the Depression, at the time of the Depression, you can check out one of my live about the depression. You can find it on YouTube. I made a whole live about almost an hour and a half about the depression, going through every aspect of it. But those people who lived through the depression, think about it, it was in 1929, right? 1929 to 1932, 3. Those people who lived through it, not born during that time, but actually lived through that time, those people are longer, how to say, it's been a long time. They're not with us. They're not with us anymore. And they went through stuff that we can't even imagine, because when we talk about COVID and hardship and all kind of things that nobody's underestimating, we're all going through stuff. And some of the people are going through harder stuff than others. And there's nothing to underestimate. And in the recession, the 2008 recession and the 2000 recession and previous recessions and going back and back and back. But no one can actually compare the 1929 depression to any other thing that you can imagine. And that is something that is unprecedented. We have to think about this. This is really serious. This is real. This is heavy. This is big stuff. So when we think about all these things, when we think about what happened to those people who lived in that era, right? They had to go through all kind of things that made them tougher, right? One of the things that made a person more resilient, stronger, hold on when there are hardships coming along, etc. These are hardships because you need something to make your muscle stronger in order to be able to persevere and to be able to continue. The other generation that we actually did get to know, thankfully, and there's very few of them are still with us. Very, very few. Those people went through the Holocaust, especially in my community, in my family, my personal family. If I look back through when I look at my father's family, from my father's side, my grandmother, who my daughter is called after, she was the only survivor out of her family. All her parents, meaning my great-grandfather, my great-grandmother, and their siblings, they're all gone. They all perished in Birkenau, in Auschwitz, what everybody knows, okay? And in terrible, terrible ways. And then from my father's side, meaning the other side from my father's side, meaning his father, my grandfather, from his side, they had to run away from Germany. They ran from Germany in 1933, if I recall correctly the story. And they came to Israel, and some other parts of the family came to America. But they managed to run away after Hitler came up in power. But they had to go through stuff that we can't even imagine. Think about it. This is heavy, heavy, heavy stuff. This is heavy stuff. I just want to make my connection a little better, so I'm going to write whoever's using the internet. 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. I'm still with you. Okay. Okay. So I'm with you guys. I just want to make sure that I have the best connection ever. I usually, when it comes to the podcast, by the way, I cut off those parts, but on live show, we can't do this. So here we are. That's a proof that we are live. And that's the way it is. So anyways, getting back to our story. So that generation had to go through all kinds of things. And going back to the conversation I had with my wife's aunt, she was talking about, I asked her, what really that generation had that this generation doesn't really have? And she said something really terrible. She said they had Hitler. And that is a horrible thing to think about. We can say it because our whole, meaning significant family, perished. So we are sort of allowed to say that kind of a thing. But it's an unfortunate thing. But people had to go through horrible, horrible, horrible things that are unthinkable. But it made them different. It made them stronger. It made them built to last. It's not like we want it to happen. God forbid, and we don't want anything even close to that. But anything that happened with hardships, and let's say the depression, and let's say things that happened throughout history, made those generations a lot stronger. So what am I trying to get to? I'm trying to get to the point where we are here today. And those generations came with absolutely nothing, less than nothing. And that's what I'm trying to say to people. So when I'm talking about, for example, I'm just giving it as an example because it's just an example. Commercial real estate, what I deal with, what I teach, what I give courses about, what I do business in, commercial real estate. When you want to get into commercial real estate today, most people believe and think, and that is the right path. And we have that path that people have to go through. You have to get in. How do you have to get in? You have to go to, you have to go to school. You have to go to college. And then you have to go to grad school, preferably a great school like NYU Shack, somewhere that would teach you this form. Or if you're in another business or another type of a thing, you will take another business school. You'll go to any other business school that respects itself. And you go through that school. And you will make yourself better and better, and you will go out. And then you will hope that you'll be hired by a large company. You'll grow into that company, and hopefully you'll get into a higher position, and hopefully we'll get into a position where you can actually put or get some equity for your actions and actually grow from there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then maybe one day you'll become a CEO, or you do your own thing, or grow your own company, or whatever it is. But there's sort of a like a built type of a thing. That was not that generation. These guys didn't have that education, didn't have that knowledge, but they still built empires. Some of them built huge empires. And how do they do that? With a back of the envelope calculations. They went through and they looked at the street and they said, that is a good street. I know why it is a good street. It's something is coming up. They knew the area. They knew the stuff. They could just say, do the math in a basic way on an envelope, and then get people around them to get involved and build a team that would be a lasting team. And they built those huge businesses. How did they do that? How did they do that? Because they had nothing to lose, because they had nothing. And that is the key. That was the key. And that's not something we all want. Nobody wants it. But then what happened to the next generation? And that is the crazy conversation here. Because when we meet today generations who came after the Depression, the Holocaust survivors, or people who went through either crazy hardships that are unthinkable, or less things that are not as crazy, but still are today, in today's measures, don't exist. Okay? Or are non-existent, almost non-existent. Okay, at least in our Western world and where we are spoiled to be. And that generation doesn't have as many of those type of entrepreneurs, people who can go through crazy hardships and can actually build something from nothing in that way, or coming from that place. So where can we find them today? We can find them. Some people are from there, but the second generation is just not the same. So what is the quality of the second generation? That is the big question. Okay, so if we don't have too many self-made people from a certain community, because the first generation of that, the founding generation of that community is the generation who went through Depression or Holocaust or whatever they went through, or wars or hardships of some sort. And the second generation was, growing into either a much better a situation, like a middle class situation, or even an abundant situation of abundance, meaning they had everything. They didn't even need anything. So where does that situation put them? What is their quality? And it's interesting to think of, that, because some of those parents didn't give everything to their kids to make sure that their kids are going to grow up in a way that they have it. And I hear a lot of philosophies like that today, of people who are self-made, who want to raise their kids in a way that they didn't grow up, etc. Okay, but at least from the communities that we know, that is the previous generation. That is the generation of the founders who went through all those hardships. So what is really the quality of those people who are their descendants, are their children, their grandchildren? And the key is that these people, if the generations were taught properly how to deal with the money, how to deal with the businesses, the second generation is the generation of managers, the managerial generation. Call it whatever you want. This generation, if the first generation was smart, they knew that their kids don't have what they had. They didn't go. Their kids did not go through what they had to go through, and thank God. But there's an advantage and a disadvantage. The disadvantage is that their kids are not built the same way. They're not designed in that way that they could do whatever they want, that they could build something from nothing, because they had so much, or they had enough, that they didn't have that hunger and that need to go and persevere and fight against the world and fight against everything around them in order to get some bread, and then to get something more, and then to get something more, and eventually build a huge business. The kids were fine. They didn't have that push, that resistance in their life that will push them to grow, etc. So what is the quality? The quality is being good managers. So if the founding generation was smart, and many of them were, they knew that they may have the quality of the entrepreneurial quality, but many of them did not have the managerial quality, how to manage a business. I don't know if it's the right word, but whatever. They didn't even know properly, at least in the beginning, how to run a business. They learn it on the go, and that's what makes an entrepreneur. You learn on the go. You do what you need to do in order to get through the first step. Then you get through the second step, and you learn what you have to do in the next step, and that's what you do. And then you learn what you do in the next step. And on the go, you get into all kind of resistances. You get all the kind of obstacles on the way, and you learn what you have to do, and then you get to the next step. And that's how you grow. And that's what they did. But then when it comes to manage a huge business, and I know it from all kinds of stories, it's not only in the business world, it's also in the nonprofit world, where people had to open a school in a community that there was no school, okay, or no proper education or something like that. And they opened this little school, and they had this entrepreneurial trait. They went and picked up kids, and they cooked the food while they taught, and they this. I know some stories like that from people I got to know and had the privilege to know. But all kind of things like that. But when the school grew and all of a sudden became a system and stuff like that, they didn't know how to run a system. And they were no longer, even though they were the founders, they had all this huge respect that was basically appointed to them. They were the person who started, he was the man or the woman, whatever. Everybody looked up to them, but they could not run the show. When it became too big, when it became systematic, when it became a system, they couldn't run the show anymore. And that's why the second generation, if the first generation was smart, he left, or they left, a second generation of managers who know how to run a business. Maybe they can't start a business. Maybe they can't open a business. Maybe they can't go and make 50 million acquisitions, but they know how to run and manage all those assets. If we're talking about real estate, run all those assets and make sure that the payment goes on time, that the maintenance is on time, that there's a proper log to every single, step of the way, and everything is being run properly. That's a quality of the managers. And that is something that is huge, because if you teach people how to run a business, and every once in a while, yes, every once in a while, out of the managers generation who grew up in a way that they are, they had everything, or they had a lot, and they didn't have to work for the bread in that way that their fathers or grandparents had to do. Maybe their kids, maybe one of their kids or one of them had this hunger to be more. And it's a matter of character. But the external world didn't have to make them that way. It didn't have to build them that way, make them people who push themselves that way. And we still have around us people who, get to a certain place where hardship comes, and then they have to perform. And many people you have those people who have this inner hunger. And today you have a lot of those it requires an inner hunger to actually go and get out of your comfort zone. And then you have those people today, and It's not as many as there were in the old times, and it's not in the same level of hardship that was in the old times. But you have people that hardship came to them, and then they have to actually perform because they have no choice but do that. And that is the highest level. There's no better performance, I would say, measure than, or measurement, whatever you want to call it, than the hardship that comes to you. Meaning the need is the mother of all performance. How do you say that? Triggers. Okay, performance triggers. The number one performance trigger is the hardship, and that is something amazing. That is something incredible. That until today, when I see it in front of me, I see this as the number one trait for entrepreneurs. But still, again, you have those families that everything went through and everything went great and people have money, but you have this person who has this great head for business and great hunger to succeed. Nothing to do with money or need, but everything to do with what can I create for other people? What problem can I solve for the world? And that is a totally different thing. So if I would have to like break it down, and if I had to put the difference, the major difference between the previous generation and this generation, is that the previous generation, what pushed them was not mostly a problem that exists out there, but they had to create a solution for a problem that exists out there because they had a personal problem to eat. And that is the major thing. And this generation, even though some of the people are pushed for the same reason, but not nearly, you can't even compare. But in this generation, you have people who push themselves because they see a need in society and they have this hunger for business and for innovation. That is a different type of push that people have today. And that's something that, we have to stress out. And that's why being an entrepreneur in this generation is harder than being an entrepreneur in the last generation. Not physically, mentally. Physically, then it was by far harder. Today, you have a lot more opportunities. You have a lot more resources. Everything is much more approachable, and it's there for us to actually get it done. We have a lot more help from whether it's financing or investment or capital out there or resources, technologies, whatever. So many resources out for us. But mentally, the push is not so much out there, not even near to what our grandparents, great-grandparents had. What they had to go through, they had a lot less resources, but they had the mental resource, which was a lot stronger. They had the muscle of persevering, the muscle of winning, because they had no choice, because their boats were burned. Okay? Today you have to go burn your boats. They didn't have any boats to burn. Their boats were burning already. Okay? They didn't have any boats. And that is something huge. That's something to think about. And if I have to, meaning I was thinking about it a lot lately, and what I have to think about today is that we have to, when we want to think of how we can persevere, and I'm talking to those who are going through hardships, that's a tool. That's a tool that those people who don't go through this, they don't have it. They don't have this quote unquote advantage that the people who are going through hardships have. Okay? And that's an advantage. Even though it's a disadvantage at that moment that you are in, it's a huge advantage to your psyche, because that will push you further and higher in a place where if you would be comfortable, most of us, or most of you, or most of anyone who is going through that would not do anything because you will be comfortable. And that's the way it is. And those people who are innovators and they have everything, thank God for them, because they have the time and the capital and the ability and the air to go and innovate stuff to make society better. So thank God for both. But today, you have also the managers, and the managers know how to take the existent. They may not be entrepreneurs. They may not be innovators. They may not be creators. They may not be people who create businesses, right? But they are managers. They will run the show a lot better than the person who came before them, than the person who actually started everything. Why? Because they put all their efforts and all their thought about how to get things done and get things higher and get the learning curve higher and the earning curve higher and every single thing that is involved in creating a viable, excellent business. And that's why there's a huge difference between the generations, the founding entrepreneurial generation and the existing managers generation. And we need both. We need them both. Both are important. Both are crucial for the growth of economy. But we have to understand that there's a huge difference between those generations. I hope this discussion was interesting to you guys. What I want to do is to wish you a great weekend. Before we go, I just want to stress out and invite you. If you're listening to the podcast right now, and if you're listening to the show live, first of all, know that there's a podcast. This whole thing will be stripped as an audio, and then I put it in the podcast. You can find it in iTunes. You can find it in Spotify, Google Podcast, you name it. It's all there. Make sure you give me 5 stars, please. Thank you very much. If you're listening in YouTube, like the button to make sure the algorithm will work better. And same thing for LinkedIn and Facebook and whatever you're listening, in whatever platform you're listening. One more thing I want to tell you. If you are in commercial real estate or entering commercial real estate, mostly for the people who want to find out more about commercial real estate, you are listening to it, you want to get into this industry, whether you are a young man, you're a young woman, you're in college, you're post-college, you want to get into the industry, you didn't really get a graduate degree that is related to that, you don't know how to enter, I created a program for you, literally. And there's a link below or above, wherever we are. And it's called the 7-Day Challenge. And I created the first day free, completely free. The first day has tons of information and it's not so long. It's a short video. You can get tons of information and learn about this. And this is created literally to give you that ability, completely free for you. That's the first thing. Look, 7-Day Challenge. You click on it, you get to the first video, you put your email and you get it. Okay? That's another thing that I want to tell you. And there was something else I forgot, but I think we're good. So what I want to do is wish you, if you celebrate Shabbos, have a beautiful, good Shabbos. And if you celebrate the weekend, have an awesome weekend. Have a beautiful weekend. And I want to wish you guys a beautiful year, a beautiful weekend. A beautiful week will be on Monday. And we have some surprises for Monday, so stay tuned. But anyways, have a beautiful weekend. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you on Monday.